Picture this. You come home after what feels like the most normal night in the world. The kettle's still warm, your dog's probably asleep in that same spot on the sofa, and everything looks exactly how you left it. Except it isn't. Because as you step inside, there's someone lying there tied up, beaten, motionless. And it's not a burglar. It's the man who lived there. That man was Eugene Gillespie, 67 years old, from Old Market Street in Sligo town, northwest Ireland. A small town man in a quiet home just a few doors down from a guard station, literally within shouting distance of the people who were supposed to protect him. Yet somehow, in that peaceful street where nothing ever happens, something did. His house was broken into. What started as a simple robbery spiraled into one of the most shocking crimes the town had ever seen, because Eugene didn't survive. He was found bound, bruised, and cold, the kind of scene that doesn't just scare people, it changes how they lock their doors at night. Now here's where it gets worse. This wasn't some calculated hit or a gang feud or a big money burglary. Nope. It was supposed to be quick, in and out. Grab the cash, leave the place, no harm done. But somewhere between easy money and getaway, everything went completely sideways. And what really twists the knife is that this happened in a place where everyone knows everyone. Sligo's the kind of town where you can't buy a pint without 3 people asking how your mother's doing. So when word spread that an elderly neighbor, the man everyone saw walking his dog every morning, had been found like that, it shook the whole community. The thing is, this case wasn't just about one man's life being taken. It exposed something way uglier: how a system that's supposed to protect the vulnerable can miss every single warning sign. And the fallout would leave a lot of people asking the same question. How the hell did this happen right under everyone's nose? Alright, so before we go Sherlock Holmes on this, let's talk about the people in this story. Because like in every small Irish town story, everyone knows someone who knows someone, right? First up, Eugene Gillespie, 67 years old, retired telecoms worker, still helped out at his family's electrical shop, the kind of man who'd fix your radio even if you didn't ask. He lived alone on Old Market Street, just him and his little dog Tiny. Yeah, that was the dog's name, Tiny. And people say Tiny was his best friend, always by his side, which in Ireland basically makes him family. Eugene wasn't rich, but he was decent. Hardworking, polite, the type who'd hold the door open for you even if you were still 50 feet away. Neighbors said he was old school nice. He'd spent his life in Sligo, born there, worked there, grew old there. The kind of man who trusted his community because it was home. And that trust, it's what makes this story so hard to swallow. Now let's meet the other guy, Simon McGinley, 30 years old at the time. Local, already known to the guards, and not because he was running charity marathons. We're talking burglary, public disorder, a few assaults, the kind of rap sheet that's longer than a Dunn's store's receipt. He wasn't some criminal mastermind. He was more like that guy in every town who always seems to be getting another chance, but never actually learns from it. He lived rough, moved between addresses, and basically drifted around Sligo. If Eugene was the quiet neighbor everyone liked, Simon was the name that made people lock their sheds at night. Now the place. Old Market Street smack in the middle of Sligo town. It's small, cozy, where every shop owner knows your first name. It's the kind of street where if your bin blows over, someone sets it back upright. You don't expect violence there. And Eugene's house? It was literally a few doors down from the local guard station. Like, you could probably throw a scone from his front window and hit the building. That close. So yeah, safe street, safe man, safe town. Until one night in September 2012, when that illusion of safety went straight out the window. It's a quiet September night in 2012. Old Market Street is half asleep, lights off, shutters down, the kind of silence that only small Irish towns know. But while the town rests, one man is wide awake and he's about to make the worst decision of his life. His name's Simon McGinley. 30 years old, broke, desperate, and about to try his luck at what he calls a quick job. He breaks through Eugene's back gate, kicks it in, splintered wood everywhere, and slips inside. His goal? Grab a bit of cash and disappear before anyone notices. Except Eugene was home. You know that moment where every bad idea suddenly becomes a nightmare? That's the moment McGinley walks straight into. He wasn't expecting company, definitely not a 70-year-old man with a dog. So instead of backing out, he panics. He starts swinging. Eugene tries to defend himself. He's 67, but he's not going down without a fight. McGinley overpowers him, ties his hands behind his back with a cord, and leaves him there on the hallway floor. And here's the sick irony, he doesn't even get much money. Just coins, loose change. That's it. All that violence for the kind of cash you'd find under a car seat. He walks out, leaves Eugene bound, hurt, and alone in that house just yards from the guard station. Then maybe guilt hits him or maybe paranoia. Either way, the next day he makes an anonymous emergency call. He tells the operator there's a man tied up in a house with a brown gate across from the barracks. It could have saved Eugene's life. But the guards went to the wrong house. They knocked, no answer. They left. The case closed, or so they thought. Meanwhile, Eugene's still there, tied up, barely breathing. And no one knows. 2 days pass before his nephew and brother come to check on him. They find him collapsed in the hallway, barely conscious. He's rushed to hospital, but his injuries and the trauma are too much. He dies the following day. What started as a petty burglary became a killing. What should have been a quick response turned into a fatal delay. And in the middle of it all, one man who just wanted to rob a house and one man who didn't deserve any of it. This is the part that makes your blood boil. After the break-in, something strange happens. A phone rings at emergency dispatch. An anonymous caller, later proven to be McGinley himself, tells them there's a man tied up in a house with a brown gate right across from the barracks. You'd think that'd be the easiest clue ever, right? Across from the barracks. End of story. Except the guards go to the wrong house. They literally walk to another home nearby, knock, no answer, and just move on. That's it. No follow-up, no double check. Meanwhile, Eugene is still inside his actual house, hurt, tied, and slowly fading. And here's what really stings. His home is so close to the guard station that if one of them sneezed loud enough, Eugene could probably hear it. We're talking that close. But no one looked twice. 2 full days pass. Neighbors see his curtains still drawn, lights off, and think maybe he's away. It's a small town, people mind their own business. Until Eugene's brother and nephew stop by. They unlock the door and find him collapsed on the hallway floor, barely alive. They rush him to hospital, but the damage is done. He's been left too long. Between the shock, the injuries, and the sheer terror of what he'd been through, his heart gives out. He dies the next day. And just like that, a simple robbery turns into a homicide, and the whole town realizes that even when help is technically next door, it doesn't always arrive. Once Eugene's death was confirmed, the town of Sligo didn't just grieve, it boiled. Everyone wanted to know who could do this. And it didn't take long for the guards to trace that anonymous call right back to the man who made it Simon McGinley. The same guy who broke in, tied Eugene up, and then phoned it in like some twisted attempt at conscience cleaning. When he was questioned, McGinley didn't deny being there. He said it was just supposed to be a robbery. That he didn't expect Eugene to be home. He said he panicked, and maybe he did, but when you tie someone's hands behind their back and leave them to die, that's not panic. That's cruelty wrapped in cowardice. The trial went to the Central Criminal Court. McGinley pleaded guilty to manslaughter and false imprisonment, hoping for a lighter sentence. But the state wasn't having it. Prosecutors said the beating and the way he left Eugene showed intent to harm. And the jury agreed. They found him guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. Then came the twist. McGinley tried to appeal. His lawyers argued that after the trial, he'd been diagnosed with early stage schizophrenia. They claimed he hadn't been mentally fit during the attack, but the Court of Appeal wasn't buying it. They said the diagnosis came years later and didn't prove he'd lost control that night. Verdict stood: life behind bars. And just when people thought the justice system had made up for its earlier failures, the truth still didn't sit right. Because yes, the killer was caught. But Eugene's death, it never should have happened in the first place. Alright, so let's step back for a second. Because this story isn't just about one killer and one victim, it's about everything around them. The cracks in the system, the "it won't happen here" attitude, and the way small towns sometimes confuse quiet with safe. Eugene Gillespie lived less than a stone's throw from the guards station. That's supposed to mean something. That's supposed to make you feel secure, like if anything ever went wrong, help was literally seconds away. But in this case, that safety net had holes big enough for a man to die through. And let's be honest, the wrong house mistake wasn't just a small error. It was a full-on failure. An anonymous call about a man tied up, and somehow the search stops after one unanswered door. It's like something out of a bad procedural show, except this time it's real. The case also hit on something deeper: how vulnerable older people living alone really are. In towns like Sligo, you've got a lot of folks who've lived there their whole lives, independent, proud, trusting. They don't want alarms or cameras. They don't even lock the back door sometimes, because they grew up believing neighbors watch out for each other. But times have changed, and Eugene's death was the ugly reminder that sometimes the danger isn't miles away, it's right next door. After the trial, there were talks in the community about better security, more patrols checking in on older residents. But the sad truth, it took a tragedy for anyone to bring it up. Eugene's case became more than a crime story, it became a wake-up call. A reminder that safety isn't about where you live, it's about who's paying attention. Let's be real for a second, this whole story is the definition of avoidable tragedy. Because Eugene didn't die in some dark alley or in the middle of nowhere. He died right next to the people meant to protect him. And that's what makes it sting the most. You can't help but think, what if one thing had gone differently? What if the guards double-checked that house with the brown gate? What if someone on the street had noticed something off? What if McGinley had just walked away that night? So many what-ifs, and none of them changed the ending. But it also shows something about Ireland that people don't always like to admit. We have this habit of assuming small towns are bulletproof, that bad things happen up in Dublin or down the country somewhere else, but not here. That's why stories like this shake people so hard, because they break the myth. McGinley wasn't a mastermind. He wasn't part of some gang. He was a repeat petty criminal who finally crossed the line, and that's the scary part, the randomness. He didn't plan a murder. He stumbled into it. And Eugene, of all people, was the one who paid for that chaos. You look at it and think this isn't about good versus evil. It's about carelessness. McGinley was careless with another man's life, and the system was careless with the call that could have saved it. And maybe that's why the story still sticks, because it wasn't supposed to be dramatic. It wasn't supposed to be national news. It was supposed to be an old man walking his dog and locking up before bed. But one wrong door, one wrong decision, and everything spiraled. So yeah, my take? The real villain here isn't just McGinley. It's every moment of complacency that said, he's probably fine. Here's the part that never stops haunting people. Eugene's house was so close to the guards station that you could practically hear them start their cars in the morning. You could literally see it from his front window. Yet when the call came in, a man tied up in a house with a brown gate across from the barracks, the response went to the wrong door. Wrong house, wrong check, wrong everything. And because of that, Eugene lay there for nearly 2 days. 2 whole days. Tied, injured, alone. While his dog barked, while life went on around him, while help sat just meters away and never came. That one mistake turned what could have been a rescue into a death. And even worse, the man who made the anonymous call McGinley was the same man who put him in that position. He knew what he'd done. He knew someone needed help. And even he tried to do the right thing in the most twisted, cowardly way possible. But the system failed twice that week, once when a violent man was free to roam after so many convictions, and again when the call for help got lost in translation. And that's the cruel irony. Eugene's story didn't just end because of violence, it ended because of silence. Silence from a town that assumed everything was fine. Silence from a system that didn't look twice. Silence in a house less than a minute away from the people who could have saved him. He never got to untie those cords. Never got to take Tiny for another walk. Never got the second chance that the man who killed him somehow did. So next time someone says, it's grand, nothing bad ever happens here, remember Old Market Street. Because that's where everyone thought the same thing. Until Eugene Gillespie proved them wrong.